Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here, checking out some PTS patch notes this week. It is week 4 of the PTS cycle. Now we have been waiting for some class updates, especially for the Arcanist class. I know that myself and many other players have been providing tons of feedback about the class. I did create a video a few weeks ago that was, I would say, somewhat critical about the Arcanist. Not in that I dislike the class, I actually like it a lot. I love how it plays. I love the style and the theme of the class overall, but I did think the class would be a little bit challenging, a bit frustrating, especially for brand new players. Number one, I thought that the self-healing of the class was pretty limited compared to others. Like when you think of a good beginner class, right? You think maybe Magicka Templar, Puncturing Sweep, you always have healing coming in when you're doing damage. Nightblades, you have Swallow Soul, constant heal over time. Sorcerers, you can use Critical Surge, or even the Blood Magic passive. So I felt like Arcanist was a little bit lacking in that regard, where when you were doing damage, you were really vulnerable. I also commented that the Beam skill, Fatecarver, the primary DPS ability, could be frustrating in some cases. You were definitely going to be vulnerable during that 5-second channel time. And also for experienced players, I found it kind of frustrating that you could spend, 3 to 4 seconds building up Crux, use it on your Fatecarver beam to empower it, but then get immediately interrupted and waste all that time. So I'll have that video in the description if you want to check it out. But luckily this week, I feel like the developers have been listening to all the feedback that the community has given, and pretty much all the criticisms I think have been addressed really well by this week 4 patch. So that being said, let's jump right into the changes so I can show you what I'm talking about. First here, a general fix in that the tooltips for several Arcanist abilities that have dynamic cost scaling are now going to specify that they scale off your highest or lowest max resource. So if you don't know yet, a lot of the Arcanist tooltips didn't say how the skill works specifically, that it was based off your highest resource. Like for a damage skill, if your Magicka is higher, it's going to cost Magicka to cast. If your stamina is higher, it's going to cost stamina to cast. So again, I think that would be really confusing for brand new players, but now it's going to say in the actual skill tooltip itself, which is a really good change. Now let's jump right into the skills here. Herald of the Tome, which is the DPS skill line. Abyssal Impact is that tentacle skill, and Cephaliarch's Flail, they're going to update this ability to heal your characters upon casting. And this is exactly what I was hoping for. Something in the DPS skill line that did damage, but also did healing at the same time. So there is a comment here. This skill has been lacking a bit in power, and we wanted to make the morph choice between it and Tentacular Dread, the other morph, be more distinct. With this additional heal, we're also hitting some of the feedback on how the class was lacking self-healing options. Now, I'm still waiting for PTS to come up. I'm not sure exactly how this works. I think it would be great if the more targets you hit with the tentacle, because it is AoE, the more healing you got. But I will definitely do an updated video for that once we find out. The good news is you're going to get more passive healing now using that skill. Now, the other morph here, Tentacular Dread, they increased the base damage by 20% per Crux cast. So this is a spender skill. And it sounds like they may be adding this as perhaps a DPS alternative to using Fatecarver if you want something that doesn't have the 5-second channel time, right? Something that's a lot quicker. Let's read the developer comment on this one too. So we've seen a lot of feedback on how the Arcanist is lacking big burst damage. And while the class was intentionally designed that way, that's interesting that they explain that here, we made an adjustment to this ability to support some extra burst. So I do like that too. I mean, it's going to require more testing, but this may be a great alternative damage skill, maybe even for like PvP, where the Fatecarver beam is definitely a little bit less reliable. Now let's talk about Fatecarver here. Again, my criticism of this skill was 2 things really. I mean, number one, the morphs were a little bit lackluster. I think one gave a snare and the other one gave cost reduction, which really isn't providing any, real significant difference that makes the morphs feel different. And also the fact that you could be interrupted, I think that was frustrating. So first of all, they reduced the cost of this ability to 450 Magicka or 383 stamina per tick. So that's a big cost reduction, almost half. You can see it's cut down from 750 Magicka or 3 or 638 stamina. So that's kind of building the cost reduction into the base skill, which I definitely agree with. I think that's a great change. And then Pragmatic Fatecarver, I believe this was the cost reduction morph. This ability now grants a damage shield while channeling, and note that you will be immune to interrupts while the damage shield holds. This is really interesting. Again, addressing some of that feedback where this skill was more frustrating, I think, to use. Let's read the comment here. Fatecarver has gotten a lot of feedback over the past few PTS patches. Definitely true. In particular, how difficult it is to use in solo or PvP environments. To combat those difficulties, we've decided to take pragmatic Fatecarver and give it some defensive tools, including a new unique effect in interrupt immunity. This is really cool. This is almost exactly what I said in my comments about the class, that it really didn't feel good to build up your 3 Crux stacks. That takes like 3 to 4 seconds. Try to cast that Empower Beam, and then bam, you get like interrupted, stunned, knocked down, and you wasted all that time. It looks like now if you choose the Pragmatic Morph, you're going to be immune to interrupts. So that's amazing. That means you can use that skill and those Crux that you built up no matter what. Plus, you get the damage shield here. I don't know how big the shield is. You'll be immune to interrupts while the damage shield holds. I mean, it's probably pretty good. I mean, the Arcanist also has class passives, which boost your damage shield strength. So I imagine that would be good. I mean, my only comment is here, what's the other morph? Like, the other morph is still just going to give a snare, and that's it. Why would you choose that over this? I mean, not saying this is a bad thing. This is an awesome update to this skill, but they may need to look at the other morph so that gives something a little bit more unique as well. Couple other changes here to the DPS skill line. So Psychic Lesion, they updated this passive to grant increased status effect chance up to 75% at rank 2. That's interesting. I know this has gotten a lot of negative feedback because it was previously 15% status effect damage, which really is not a lot of damage when you think about it, even if you're using a lot of different status effects. So this could be more useful in some circumstances. Let's check out the comment here. We recognize this passive has felt on the weaker side, so we added an increased status effect chance to keep with the feeling that the Arcanist has greater knowledge of the elements than other classes. I like that. Let's keep going here. The Imperfect Ring. The cost of this ability will now be based off of your lowest max resource. That's really interesting. That's definitely going to help with sustain. I actually like this change. One of the other problems with the Arcanist class is definitely in the sustain department. When things are scaling with your highest stat, everything is going to cost the same, right? So if you're a Magicka build, all of your skills are going to cost Magicka. What do you use your stamina for? Now, if you're going to use Imperfect Ring, that ability is going to cost stamina, helping you spread out your costs a little bit, helping with sustain. I definitely like that. I kind of wish they would do that on another, maybe 1 to 2 more skills in the Arcanist toolkit. That's a really good idea. And then the ultimate here, Unblinking Eye, they did reduce the cost of this ability to 175 ultimate from 200. I think that's great. And then they fixed the visual here, which I'm really happy about. Have you seen any of the gameplay? The Watcher that you summon is basically right above your head. It really blocks your vision because of the, all the green lasers going in every direction. So that's now going to be summoned above your target to aid in combat visibility instead of over your own character. Great change. I'm glad they listened to feedback on that one as well. Soldier of Apocrypha, this is the tank skill line for the Arcanist. So Aegis of the Unseen, which is a passive. They just updated the tooltip here to specify the bonus only applies while a beneficial Soldier of Apocrypha ability is active. Okay, that's good. Gibbering Shield, which is your ultimate. The Gibbering Shelter morph, they just fixed an issue with allies getting the shield, so that's good. Runic Jolt is your class-based taunt. Arcanist, the only class in the game so far that has a class taunt, which is really nice. They did increase the range to 22 meters. That's cool. So you can use this now at longer range compared to before. That's really useful, I think. And then Rune of Eldritch Horror, the Uncanny Adoration morph, they remove the snare on charmed targets. So I think that's really good. All good changes there. And then Curative Rune Forms is the healing skill line. Apocryphal Gate, they fixed an issue where this would not break stealth or invisibility when teleporting between the portals. Okay, that's interesting. And then Chakram Shields. This is a really good damage shield skill for the Arcanist. And I do like this change a lot. So Tidal Chakram, this morph no longer reduces the cost per Crux spent. Again, that's kind of a useless morph in my opinion. Instead, it's now going to grant heal over time while the damage shield holds based on the shield's remaining strength and per Crux cast. Really nice. Let's read the comment here. The original Crux spending effect on this morph wasn't impactful enough compared to other Crux spenders, so we've redesigned it to grant a powerful heal over time that makes the Crux investment more worthwhile and gives the class some additional measures of sustained healing. Really, really good. Again, my main criticism about the Arcanist was a lack of passive healing and healing over time. Now when you use the shield, you're going to get heal over time as long as the shield is active, which is really good. Couple more changes here. Remedy Cascade, fix an issue where these were not considered healing abilities for most procs and passive effects. That's good. And they increased the width of this ability to 4 meters, up from 3 meters. Rune Mend, which is your basic healing skill, the first one that you get, they fixed an issue where this ability and its morphs was not considered a single target heal. That's a good fix there. And then Vitalizing Glyphic is your healing ultimate. The weapon and spell damage granted by this ability and its morphs can now affect up to 12 targets. Okay, that's good. Note that the healing over time only affects up to 6 targets, okay? And then Glyphic of the Tides morph. This morph now also grants major protection. Wow, that's pretty nice. Up to 12 targets once the Glyphic reaches full health. Okay, some really nice changes there. Let's go ahead and read the comment here as well. They increase the maximum target of this ability's effect to make it more viable when compared to other group ultimates like Warhorn. Okay, that is nice. And then they also talked about the Glyphic of the Tides morph. Getting that bonus effect once it's fully powered to help reward healers that want to invest into that specific morph. So I think that is good. So overall, like I said in the introduction, I think a lot of the issues that I had with the Arcanist, especially for beginners and solo players, a lot of those have been corrected in this week 4 patch. Personally, I'm really excited to start checking these out and updating builds. I think these changes are going to make a big difference, but go ahead and let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. I mean, just the fact that they have listened to feedback, I think in this case is really good. There are a couple of other class changes I want to review. Also a really important change for companions. So let's check that out next. So under Dragonite Dark Talons, the damage over time from this morph is now going to always apply to the target rather than only when they do not have a dot already active. And they reduce the damage over time by approximately 27%, but increase the duration to 5 seconds. So something to keep in mind there if you're using Burning Talons. And I did want to point out this change to Templar coming up. Templars have already got some nice buffs going into the Necrom chapter. I covered those in my previous videos, but they did get a buff as well for Backlash. This ability and its morphs now need 60% less total damage to reach their final values. So this basically means to get the full damage of that explosion effect, you're not going to have to do as much damage to get that going. I think this is really good. They did make a comment here talking about PvP specifically. They made this change because it was basically impossible to reach that tooltip value in PvP with the damage reduction and all the other things that were going on. They say it's still going to be challenging to reach that value in PvP environments, I think especially against more experienced players who are countering that with damage mitigation. And this is interesting too. They're doing this intentionally so that Templars retain a weakness in some capacity. They do say that they'll continue to monitor this value and make adjustments accordingly once they get more data from live servers. So they're definitely looking at this skill, how it combines with the Templar toolkit, specifically for PvP. I mean, this is a great adjustment for solo builds and PvE builds specifically, where when you don't have as much damage, you're still going to get more damage out of that tooltip, which is nice. And then there was a quick fix to Acid Spray here. They also reduced the damage over time by 27%, but increased the duration. That's exactly the same as Burning Talons. I don't know if that's accurate or if that's just copy-paste, but we'll check that out anyways. And the final thing I wanted to mention here is companions. I did another video on the new companions the other week, Xandar and Sharp as Night. Both really cool companions. I'm glad to see them added to the Necrom chapter. My one piece of feedback was that Sharp as Night, the new Warden companion, was probably the weakest just in terms of combat abilities, and specifically as a tank. If you saw that video, I showed that he really struggled with just basic content, a world boss, a dungeon boss, in terms of survival. So it appears like the developers have listened here when we look at Sleep Mail, which is Sharp's defensive skill, his armor buff basically. When he casts Sleep Mail, he will now also apply 20% reduced damage taken, and it will still apply Major Resolve up to 5 other allies. The reduced damage taken buff and Major Resolve now have a duration of 6 seconds. So I believe this is an 8-second buff, so with just a couple of quicken trait armor pieces for your companion, he should be able to maintain this almost 100%, reduce his damage taken by 20%, and I think probably this will make a big impact in terms of if you want to use Sharp as Knight as a Warden tank, that damage reduction is going to help a lot. So I think this is, again, another good change. It looks like they're listening to feedback, which I definitely appreciate. So yeah, overall, I mean, week 4, a nice update for the current patch, which is being tested right now. Like I said, I am very optimistic now about the Arcanist class moving forward. I'm going to start working on builds, beginner builds, solo builds, group builds, all the content that you guys are going to need when Necrom chapter launches. Of course, let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. If you're not subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button to see all those new videos. Like this video if you found it helpful, and as always, thanks so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video. By now, you're probably starting to realize just how much information in ESO isn't explained well to players. And I know for me personally, this was really frustrating when I was starting out. It took me many months of teaching myself how to play the game before I could finally start to make my own builds that were effective and actually fun to play. Since then, I've decided to put everything I've learned into a simple step-by-step system that you can also use to create your own powerful and fun builds for yourself. We're calling this the ESO Zero to Hero Academy, and it's being hosted through Podia, which is an amazing online learning platform. So far, our Ultimate Build Guide has over 25 lessons and over 2 hours of video content designed to take you from a beginner to a master build crafter, not in months like it took me, but in just a few hours. So if you want to check out the guide and preview all the included lessons, just click on the link down below in the pinned comment.